Bonjour et bienvenue. Today we'll be discussing a very interesting topic, which is the French consonant sounds. In our previous lesson, we talked about the French alphabet, and we said there are 26 in number. These alphabets are just the same alphabet used in the English language. So from A to Z is just the same way it is in French. So if you haven't seen that lesson, I'll encourage you to go back to that one and watch it before this, or you can watch it after this. It's very important you watch that lesson. Okay, today we'll be focusing on the consonant letters, what they sound like and how they are used in words. How are they pronounced in words or in a sentence? Okay, so please stay with me. I remain Verichima and you're welcome. Je m'appelle Verichima et bienvenue. Of the 26 French alphabets, we have 20 consonants. Unlike the English language, we have about 21 consonants, but in the French, we have 20 consonants. Now, these consonants are B, C, D, F, G, H, J, K, L, M, N, P, Q, R, S, T, V, W, X, and Z. Okay, so there are 20 in number. Okay, so if you notice, I didn't mention the letter Y. So in French, Y is considered vowel. Now, what are consonant sounds? Now, consonant sounds are those sounds you produce by blocking air from coming out of the mouth. Unlike the vowel sounds, when you say ah, you produce air and it goes out freely through the mouth. But when you produce sounds of the consonant letters, you tend not to produce so much air through the mouth. Okay, so you produce air, but it doesn't go out so freely through the mouth. Okay, for example, when I say B, the air, I produce air, but it doesn't come out freely from my mouth. When I say D, you can practice it. When I say D, the same thing happens. So that's how consonant sounds are being produced. As much as the French and the English language share similar alphabets, similar consonants, letters, they do not have similar pronunciations with all the alphabets. So the challenge you'll be having here is to discover those sounds that are not similar. Practice those ones so as to get used to those sounds. Okay, so now before we go to the consonant sounds, there are about 3 things I'd like to share with you. Now, these things are really important because it helps you know how and what to expect with the French consonant sounds. Okay, so the first thing is the sound of the consonant letter might change due to the position of that letter in a word. So in the word gâteau, gâteau means cake. So the first letter is the letter G, which is pronounced as G. Okay, but in another word, âge. Age means age, just like in English. So age. Now the same letter that sounded as G at the beginning of a word, so it's now placed at the middle of another word to sound different. Okay, so now it's been transformed from G to J. So gâteau and age. Okay, it's just the same in English. The second thing is that when a consonant letter in a word is placed directly with another consonant letter, the sound of that letter might change. Okay, like in the word agneau. Agneau means lamb. So in that word, there's a G. The G is no longer pronounced as G, it's not pronounced as J, but it's pronounced as new because of the next letter, which is an N. So in that word, you don't say ango or anjo, you say agneau. Okay, so agneau means lamb. The same could apply to another vowel placed closely, like in the word age. And the third thing you need to know about the consonant letters is that most consonant letters at the end of French words are silent. Okay, not all of them. So most of them are silent. Okay, so in English, to create a plural of a word, we most times add S. Okay, so we add S, for example, to the word book. Book is singular, books is plural, so we add an S to make it books. Okay, to make it plural. Book in French means livre. Okay, livre is a singular form of a book in French. Now when you want to make it plural, you also add S at the end of it. Okay, But when pronouncing the singular and the plural form of book in French, which is livre, and it should be livres, okay, for the plural. In French, the S of the plural is silent, okay? So whether it's singular or plural, the pronunciation remains the same, okay? But in writing, of course, you have to put the S. So that's what I mean by most final consonants, that's consonants at the end of French words, most of them are silent. Not in all cases, but most of them are silent. So just bear that in mind while we learn this consonant sounds. So in today's lesson, we'll be looking at the basic consonant sounds that you need to know as beginners, okay, of the French language. Now, this is because in French, like I said, we have about 20 consonant letters. Some of these letters are a bit complex, okay? So I don't want to bore you. I don't want to make it really confusing. So I'm going to talk about the basic consonant sounds that you need to know now, okay? So in subsequent videos, I'll talk about the other consonant sounds that you should know about. Today, we're talking about consonants like B, D, F, K, Q, V, and Z. Okay, so let's start with the first one, which is the letter B. B is pronounced as B, like in the word beau. Okay, beau means handsome. So in the word beau, the letter B is the first letter in that word, and it gives us the B sound. Now, when you have another word like bébé, bébé means baby. So the word bébé, we have B as the first letter in that word, and we have another B in the middle of that word. But the sound remains the same. So when you have B, in whatever position of a word, it still gives the B sound. So it's just the same as in English. So when the letter B is doubled, that's to say that when you have double B in a word in French, like in the word Adresse, you still have the sound B, okay? So the sound B is not doubled, so it's not a b-bus, okay? So it's a bess. So it's just one B sound you hear in that word, okay? Now, when the letter B is found at the end of a word, so if the final consonant at the end of the word is the letter B, the B becomes silent, like in the word plum, okay? Plum is not pronounced as plumb. So there are some consonant letters that you place beside the letter B, and it changes the consonant sound B to P, okay? It changes it from B to P. So when you add the consonant T beside a B in French, it changes it to P, okay? When you also add S beside the letter B, okay? The letter B, it changes it also to P. For example, in the word absolute, you don't say absolute, so it's absolute. Even though the letter in that word is a B and not a P, it's pronounced like a P, so it's pronounced as absolute. Now the next consonant letter is the letter D. The letter D is pronounced as D, as in English, it's pronounced as D. So in the word door, in English, the D there is pronounced as D, okay? So in French, we have words like de, okay, de. The first letter of that word is D, and it's pronounced as D. So when you have D as the first letter in a word, it gives you the D sound. When the D is in the middle of the word, it still gives you the D sound. So the D can be the first, the second, the third, or whatever position in a word, and still give you the D sound. Like in the word Adresse, okay? Adresse means address, okay? So the D still gives us the D sound. Now, if the D is a final consonant in a word, it becomes silent, like in the word ni, okay? Ni. The D there is silent. In the word pied, okay? Pied means foot. In the word pied, the D is also what? Silent. You don't say pied, okay? So when you have a D at the end of a word in French, that D is silent. So there is an exception. The only time that D at the end of a word in French can be pronounced is in the case of what we call laision. Now, laision happens when the last consonant in a word, okay, is followed by another word that begins with a vowel letter or with a mute H. Now, in this example, grãtɔm, D is the last letter in the word, and the word that follows after starts with a mute H, okay? In that case, the D becomes pronounced, okay? the D becomes pronounced. Now when you have another word like Grande Afrique, Grande idée, okay? So in that case, the D becomes pronounced. Now liaison happens when there is no pause in between words in a sentence. You know, when you read in a sentence, you try to create pauses, okay? Especially when there's a comma or where there is a need to, create a pause. But in cases where there is no pause, the D at that point becomes pronounced if the next word that follows after starts with a vowel letter or with a mute H, okay? It takes us to the next letter, which is the letter F, okay? Now the letter F is pronounced as F, just the way it is in English. So in English, we have a word like father. Now F is pronounced as F in English. The same applies to the F in French, okay? Like in the word fou, okay? Fou, the F is the first letter in that word and it gives us a F sound, okay? When you have another word like enfant, F is not the first letter in that word. F in the word enfant is still pronounced as F, okay? F in the word Afrique is still pronounced as F. So F remains F in a word, okay? Now when you have F at the end of a word, it remains pronounced. So a word like neuf, neuf means 9, neuf also means new, okay? When you have F at the end of a French word, like in the word neuf or in the word œuf, which is egg, F is always pronounced, okay? So F is always pronounced. F can change in pronunciation. Remember what I said, that when there's an interference with another consonant or vowel letter, it could affect the pronunciation of a particular consonant. Now the same applies to the letter F. So in a sentence, if you have a word that ends with the letter F, okay, which is of course supposed to be pronounced as F, okay, and the word that follows after starts with a vowel letter or with a mute H, okay, there's what we call laision. So it's more like a link between the ending of the first word and the beginning of the second word. So when there is that link, we call it liaison. The F changes from F to V, okay? So it changes from the sound you get from the letter F to the sound you get from the letter V, okay? When you say 9, it means 9 o'clock, okay? So when you want to put them together, the F changes from the V sound to a V sound. Now, it doesn't mean that the letter has to change. The letter remains the same, but the pronunciation changes, okay? The next letter, which is the letter K. Now, K is pronounced as K, K. Now, in French, you don't get to see words, French words, that start with the K letter, okay? Most of the words you see in French that start with the K letter are foreign words, okay? So they are words that are not really French. Now, K is always pronounced, whether it's in the beginning of a word or in the ending of a word. Like in the word kilo, kilo, K is the first consonant letter in that word and it's pronounced as K, so kilo, okay? Now, at the end of a word, you have a word like yak, okay? K at the end of that word is still pronounced. So the next consonant you need to know is the letter Q. Now the letter Q is pronounced like K, okay? So it's K, it's still the K sound. But with the letter Q, in French, you hardly see letter Q written alone at the beginning of a French word or in the middle of a French word, okay? So Q always goes with the U, okay? To give it that Q, like give it that Q sound. So the U is not pronounced. What you hear is the K, like in the word cat, cat. Cat means 4, number 4. So in the word cat, you have the Q, the U put together at the beginning of that word. In the word epoch, okay, epoch, Q and U is used in the middle of the word, okay? So the only time you get to see Q written as the only letter in a word is at the end of the word, like in the word sunk, okay? In the word sunk, we have Q at the end of that word. So sunk means 5, okay? So when you have Q at the end of the word, it's usually pronounced, okay? Now the last letter is the letter V. Now, V is pronounced as V, V, just the way it is in English, okay? It's pronounced as V. Like in the word vélo, okay? Vélo means bicycle. In the word vélo, V is pronounced as what? V. Now, V can also be found in the middle of a word in French, like in the word livre, okay? You have V, and V is still pronounced as V, okay? So whether it's in the beginning of the word, in the middle of the word, the sound remains the same. In the word souvenir, okay? V, the V there is still pronounced as V, okay? You hardly see a word in French that ends with the V, okay? But sometimes you can hear people say anniv, okay? Like bon anniv, which is, anniv is the short form of anniversaire. So anniv is not even a full word, okay? It's the short form of anniversaire. So some people might not want to say anniversaire, which means birthday, like bon anniversaire, which is happy birthday. People might just say bon anniv, okay? But that's not a complete word. V is the last letter in that word, okay? So, but it's an abbreviation. So most French words do not end with a V, okay? Now this takes us to the last consonant letter that we'll be learning today, and that's the letter Z. Z is pronounced as Z, just the way it is in English, okay? Like in the word zero, zero. Z is the first letter in that word. You can find Z in the middle of the word and it still sounds the same way, okay? Z in the middle of the word douze, and it still sounds as Z, okay? So, but when you have Z at the end of a word, like in the word chez, the Z is silent. In the word riz, the Z is silent. Now, riz means rice, okay? For those of you who love rice. So, riz, the Z at the end is not pronounced. Now, the only time you get to see words with Z that are pronounced are either foreign words that are usually words that are not French. Like in the word jazz, jazz, the Z at the end of it is what pronounced. Just as explained with the letter D, with the letter Z, Z is usually not pronounced. But when Z is at the end of a word in French, it becomes pronounced if the word that comes after starts with a vowel letter or with a mute H, okay? So in words like chez elle, okay? Remember we said chez, the Z is silent. But when we have a word that follows after with that starts with a letter, a vowel letter or a mute H, like in chez elle, the Z becomes pronounced, okay? Now I just want to do a quick recap on all I've said so far. I know this might be a bit challenging for a lot of you. It might be difficult to understand, okay? But I just encourage you, go back and listen to all I've said. With continuous practice, you would really understand and be able to read your words correctly. Remember that knowing the right pronunciation of this would help you develop a good accent of the French language, okay? So I'm going to do a recap on all I've said so far. I started with the letter B, and I said the letter B is pronounced as B, okay? And whether it's in the beginning of a word or in the middle of a word, or if there's a double B put together, it still gives it the B sound. Now, but when you have the B, when you have the letter T after the letter B, it's no longer pronounced as B, but as P, okay? And when you have S-O-L after the letter B, it's pronounced as P, like in the word absolute, okay? B at the end of a French word is usually silent. So we also talked about the letter D. I would say the letter D is pronounced as D, okay? Like in the word de. So whether it's in the beginning of the word, in the middle of the word, like in the word adresse, okay? It's pronounced the same. Now, at the end of a word, the letter D is usually silent. Like in the word ni and the word pied, okay? The D is silent. We talked about the letter F, and we said F is pronounced as F. So whether F is in the beginning of the word, like in fou, or it's in the middle of the word, like in fond or Afrique, F is usually pronounced. When F is at the end of the word, it is still pronounced. Now, the only time F changes from being pronounced as F to V is when there is a laision, okay? And this laision happens when F is the last letter in a word, and the word that follows after that letter in a sentence starts with a vowel letter or with a mute H, okay? The sound changes from F to a V, okay? Like in nerveux, like in nerve African, okay? So it changes from F to V. Okay? And then we talked about the letter K, and we said the letter K is pronounced as K. Okay? Just the way it is in English. It's pronounced as K, whether it's in the middle of a word or at the end of a word. And that you hardly find French words that start with K. Most of these words are borrowed or foreign words. Okay? Like in the word kilo and in the word yak, K is usually pronounced. Okay? And then we talked about the letter Q. And we said in the French language, Q, the letter Q is not used alone. It goes a lot with the letter U at the beginning and at the middle of French words. So you don't see a French word that just starts with Q. It starts with Q and U. So Q and U goes together in words. But the U is usually not pronounced. It's a Q you hear, okay? So the Q gives you the K sound. So it gives you the sound you get from the letter K, okay? Like in the word quatre, okay? Quatre, you have QU as the first two letters in that word, but the U is silent, okay? And in the word epoch, okay? Epoch. Now QU is also in the middle of that word, but it's still pronounced as K, okay? Now the only time you get to see Q alone in a French word is at the end of the word, like in the word cinq, okay? And the Q is always pronounced, whether it's in the middle, in the beginning, or at the end of a French word. And then we talked about the letter V, and we said the letter V is pronounced as V, just the way it is in English. So in French, we have words like voiture, we have words like vélo, souvenir, beginning or in the middle of the word, it remains the same. In French, you hardly see a word that ends with the consonant letter V, and that's the letter Z. Z is pronounced as Z, just the way it is in English, okay? Like in the word zero, zero, douze, and it still sounds as Z, okay? So, but when you have Z at the end of a word, like in the word chez, the Z is silent. Among what we've said so far, the letter D, the letter F, and the letter Z, liaison can happen if the word that comes after starts with a vowel letter or with a mute H. Now let's practice a few words. So I'm going to give you 1 minute to pronounce the words you'll be seeing on the screen, okay? So I'd like you to focus on those basic consonant letters that we just learned, okay? So focus on them as much as I know there are other consonant letters and vowel letters with it, but try pronouncing those words. Pronounce the words, but focus really well on the ones we learned and see if you can pronounce them just the way I explained, okay? Are you ready? Let's do this. Grande amie, chez elle, pratiquer, dada, 9 ans, 9 ans, kiwi, vérité, barbe. Okay, so if you got all of these correctly, you've done really well, bravo. And if you didn't get all of them correctly, it's okay, it's normal. I'll just encourage you to keep practicing, okay? With time, you would know this alphabet so well. Okay, so if you have any questions with regards to the consonant letters or with regards to all we've learned so far since we started, put your questions in the comment section below. I'll be there to respond to your questions. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe and share this video, of course. And I'll see you in the next lesson. A bientôt!